Good morning, Missouri. Good morning, Missouri companies, exporters, business and trade experts. We are delighted that you could all join us today for this is our second Missouri Online Global Program and Grants webinar. And today we're going to be focusing in on online marketing and how that can help you for your exports and growing your sales and exports and brand. So we really appreciate that you've all taken the time to log on and join us as we look at some of these issues today. Now, just while the last people are sort of logging on and putting in their names, let's quickly just introduce ourselves. So my name is Susanna Hardy. I'm Chief Content Officer at IBC Online. I'm really delighted to be here and talking with you all. I'm sorry that I'm not sitting around a table with you in Missouri today, but it's great to be online at least and take advantage of these online tools to try and do some business as well. I'm also really pleased to be joined by Samantha Sofici, Business Development Manager at IBC Online, and Samantha is a tremendous asset for us as a really experienced and valued business development manager, and with a lot of good cheer and patience can guide companies through the online world and online business development tools. And of course, we are absolutely delighted to have Ann Pardalos, who I'm sure most of you know. Ann is the Managing Director of the Missouri International Trade and MITI Office. That's the MITI for short. And she oversees MITI, but also oversees the MITI network of global offices. She directs the International Export Plan, and along with all of her staff, make sure that Missouri is ready to do business online. And just a quick word then about IBC Online. We are a private company, US company, and are focused on online tools for business development. So we are really 100% focused on developing and building and hosting and managing tools for our clients to help them grow their business internationally. So basically two elements that we do, this, websites and online marketing. And I guess what I'd like to say is that our unique selling point is that we work, think, and act globally and have done since our creation back in 2002. Today's agenda, really, we're going to be focusing in on the online international marketing side. Talking about, first of all, why we think Missouri exporters can benefit from it and why they need to have some kind of strategy for online marketing. Then we're going to go back to some of the key essentials of online marketing, just some of the, just highlighting the essential ingredients of online marketing and looking at how you can use international online marketing for your business. A short summary of sort of how we think you can prepare for the rebound, which, don't know how and don't know when, but we know is going to come. And then some direct help for Missouri small and mid-cap enterprises and some time for Q&A. So please do put your questions in the chat box. The chat box, there should be a little screen on the right-hand side, chat, and you can put your questions in there. We'll be creating questions during the webinar and have time at the end for all of your questions. Now, before we start, I'd like to turn to Ann. Tell us a little bit about what MITI and Missouri is doing to help Missouri companies today. So, Ann, without further ado, if you could give us some of your words here.
Susanna, thank you very, very much. And thank you to Samantha as well, too, for all of your help and efforts during this time, and especially for the second installment of this two-part series with regards to resources for Missouri companies. Thank you also to all of our participants joining today. Really appreciate your time, of course. And want to make certain that you have at your disposal all of the resources available to help with the economic recovery as we come out of the COVID-19 response to literally a recovery. On the first slide, what I'd really like to share with you today, just very, very briefly, the Missouri International Trade and Investment Office, part of the Department of Economic Development, Our goal is very, very simple. Our mission is very, very simple. It's literally to increase Missouri exports by increasing the number of companies exporting and, of course, the volume of exports. We do that through our global office network. We have 12 of them around the world. We'll show you a slide in just a little bit with regards to that, but our primary responsibility focuses around trade promotion and investment promotion. Our global office network, which is kind of indicated on this next slide, will show you exactly where that footprint exists. Literally in all of the key markets all across the globe. You will see kind of, one offshoot there with regards to our New York office. That office, of course, is situated in the tri-state region, of course, on the East Coast and primarily for investment promotion. But that is, everywhere where we do have a presence. The other point that I would like to make primarily about the services offered, which is shown on the next slide, we are a full service, trade promotion and export promotion offices. These are primarily the top services that we provide for our companies. But today, I'm not going to spend time going through, the first tranche of those. I really want to focus on our GMAP and most Step Up programs. With regards to website marketing, social media marketing, with regards to search engine optimization marketing, we've been in a position to where we were able to relax some of the regulations, some of the policy requirements with regards to our GMAP program. We typically do not allow for what we call double dipping into activities, one activity in particular, between the two programs. So what we've done here is under the STEP program, if you'd like to take advantage of the IBT services, you would qualify for $6,000 under one program, the STEP program, and then you would also qualify for $6,000 in reimbursement under the GMAP program. So collectively for this activity, you have a total of $12,000 at your disposal to literally offset the costs of the programs. Again, I'm going to say that you've got a maximum $12,000 reimbursement with regards to the program. So I encourage each of you to reach out not only to my team, but also to our colleagues at the Missouri Department of Agriculture. If you're an agribusiness, we encourage you to take part in this program as well also. So without further ado, the last slide that I have is literally a who to call. If you're in these particular regions in the state, the North, you would call Beatrice. In Kansas City, you'd call Krista. St. Louis, and on down the line, as a matter of fact. And if you're an agribusiness, I encourage you to reach out to the Missouri Department of Agriculture once again and speak with Ms. Brenda Verslois, the manager of that particular program, and literally determine how you can take part in this program. I know I've gone through those slides very, very quickly. We are, as I said, only a phone call, email away. I really want to make certain that we spend the majority of this time letting the experts, both Susanna and Samantha, touch upon, all of the key items that are necessary to make certain that your website, your social media marketing is where it needs to be, especially during this critical time. So thank you all again for joining. We'll be available for question and answers a little bit later on. So Susanna, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ann. That's fantastic. And indeed, we have put an awful lot into this webinar. There's a lot of slides. I've already seen 4 hands being raised. Yes, you will get a recording of the slide deck of the webinar as soon, I think tomorrow or the day after. So there's a lot of information on it, but you will get a recording in your inbox. Sometimes it goes to your junk box, by the way. So have a look, but you will receive a recording of it with all that information. Anyway, so let's now talk about why exporters need online international marketing, why it is something that you need to put into your toolbox as we go forward, particularly as of 2020. And I guess the simple view is just that everybody's online. Now, we're total global population of 7.5 billion, 4.5 billion of us are on the internet. And we're on the internet for an average of 6 hours and 45 minutes a day. This has gone up significantly since COVID, since the first 3 months, 4 months of this year, these numbers have all increased. But I think what's I just want to show with this slide is, 60% of the world is plugged in, and they're plugged in for most of their waking day. And one of the main things they're doing is talking to each other, communicating. So I said 4.5 billion. Well, 3.8 billion of those people are using social media actively. And again, if you look at the number of hours spent and so on, it's maybe 3 hours a day and so on. So it really is a very active, embedded part of people's daily lives. And then just to show you on this slide here how global it is, it really is every country involved here. Even places like Ghana has 20% using social media. The USA is at 70%, and the world average is at 50%. There are countries out there where, particularly smaller countries and wealthy countries, whether that's UAE, in the Middle East, or Singapore, but also places like Indonesia, where the level of social media penetration is in the 80s to 90% of the population. One of the things that I think it's really important to point out is how long people spend a day doing this. So we talked about 6 hours and 47 minutes, so it's nearly close to 7 hours a day spent on the internet. 2.5 hours is spent on social media. And I think what's also interesting is that nearly 50% of people who use social media say they use it for work purposes. And we'll get down to some examples of this. And this is particularly in what are called mobile first markets. For example, Mexico or India or China. So these are markets that are very, very reactive, usually with a mobile phone, and they use social media in the way that many of us, perhaps in the States, use the internet. In other words, they use social media as a search engine. They don't just go to Google, they use social media platforms. Again, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but there's one defining characteristic of anything that's on either your website or online media, online international media, and that is that it is customer-centric. So it's not about you, the company, that people come to you. No, you have to be visible so that you can be seen. And if you are relevant to that customer or that prospective client, they will be able to see you. So it's only really if you're relevant. And we went through this in a more detail in the first webinar, but I'm just sort of pulling up a couple of things that we think are important in this time too, because this is not just about your website, but also about online marketing. You have to be relevant to your customer. So if your customer is in Mexico City, is your message, is your website relevant for someone in Mexico City? Is it in Mexican Spanish? Is it hosted in Mexico? Does it have the right content management system, which is the sort of architecture that you build the websites on? All those aspects of a website and online marketing that make something relevant. So whenever you're thinking about anything online, put it from the customer's point of view. And again, we'll get down to some examples of this, but I think I just wanted to, this is the same slide we saw on the first webinar, just to show you, one of the reasons why, or as a reflection of this customer-centric aspect, search engines organize the web according to relevancy, according to the searcher's relevancy. So don't think of Google as the huge sort of beast that's all homogeneous. It is not. Google UK is different from Google US, is different from Google Mexico, is different from Google Germany. So they're all the same Googles, but think of them as different entities for each country. They are searcher centric. So if your website and if your online marketing is not ready, is not relevant for that prospective buyer and your prospective client, Google and your online marketing will not be visible to them. And that's, I think, the key that I want to just put out here. So just sort of, and again, this is very much also a recap of the webinar we did before. So if you have an interest in that, let us know, and you could download the recording that we did for Missouri exporters about websites about 2 weeks ago. So just answering my question, why do Missouri exporters need international online marketing? For us, they need it for 2 reasons. The first is that the world is online. That's good news for small and mid-cap companies. It means you know where your business partners are, you know where your customers are, and you know where your prospective customers are, and you know how to find them. You find them through business development tools like websites and online marketing. And in the current environment, you need to prepare for the rebound. And how to do that in a time of social distancing, how to do that in a time when trade shows are not on, you need to have online business development tools. Basically, they fall into 2 categories, websites and online marketing. So now let's talk about some of those online international marketing essentials. Perhaps just before I drop into this, I'm gonna surprise you all and just put out a little poll. And just to make sure everybody is sort of on their toes. We want to know, when do you think your company will be traveling internationally? So all you have to do is click on the response that most corresponds to you. Are you, an optimistic, saying, I'm going to be out there in 3 months' time? Or if you're going to say, I haven't a clue, but it's going to be a long time from now. I would love to have some response about this, because one of the things we're doing also is looking at about trade shows and about trade missions, and when are you actually going to see your distributors. So it'd be really fascinating to get this. Thank you very much for that response. Many of you have responded, and just to say, I think there's quite a cluster there around about 6 months. Most of you are within that sort of 6 month band, which is very, it's encouraging to see that. That's great. Thank you. Right, going to close that poll and get back to our webinar about online international marketing essentials. As I said, there are basically these 2 things. There's your website, and that can be with or without e-commerce. It can be a B2B website, a B2C, or a B2 government, or have aspects of all 3 of those. And then there's the online marketing. And online marketing basically falls under online marketing for search engine marketing, SEM, or social media marketing, SMM. Those are the 2 big categories of online marketing. And as I said, for your website, it's all about having, for your export markets, having websites where your export clients can reach you. In other words, having localized websites. And in an ideal world, what we'd like to see is having a system or a strategy of saying, okay, I have my US Missouri website. That's my main website. And around that website, I have a series of search engine optimization, and I have social media strategies that all interconnect and gather information and gather prospects and pull them into my website so that I can connect with them in a good way. But I have, many export markets, but I got 2 really amazing, big, strong, prospective, big markets. One is France and one is Brazil, for example. If those are good export markets, and you have, let's say you have good distributors there, or you have some good prospects there, then those markets deserve their own websites. They deserve their own localized websites so that they're relevant for Brazil, relevant for that French prospective buyer. And around that, you have their own dedicated search engine optimization and dedicated social media marketing. They can be offshoots of your US social media and international marketing or online marketing strategies, tailored for those local markets, so that you can have this endless link and a feedback between the websites and your online marketing strategies between your US website, your core domestic website, your home site, and those offshoot export markets. But the key that we want to point out here is that the very first step in a online marketing strategy is to make sure that you have the right springboard, the right localized website, which allows your customers to find you and interact with you. So, it's no good having just sort of, saying, well, we've got some great French prospects here, let's launch some French online marketing, if there's no place for those French prospects to investigate you and connect and say, hey, let's find out more about this company. Where can I request a quote? Where can I get more information? Where can I buy? If they're not directed to their localized French website. So there you go. Step one, make sure it is a customer-centric, prospect-centric website, which allows you then to build an effective online marketing strategy. This is part of what was called a buyer's journey. And the buyer's journey is all about making sure that you interact in a relevant way and build the relevance, build the trust that you need for that buyer's journey to be a success. Before we talk more about the buyer's journey, let's talk a bit about a buyer's persona. And for that, I'm going to turn to Samantha to talk to us a bit about a buyer persona. Samantha?
Yeah, thanks, Susanna. So as HubSpot defines it, a buyer persona is a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer based on market research and real data about your existing customers. Defining a buyer persona is really important. It allows you to make sure that you're always reaching the right person at the right time with the right message, saving yourself and your company a ton of time and resources. What's important to keep in mind is that you can, and you absolutely should, have a few different buyer personas depending on who your ideal customers are. It's especially true for your international buyer personas because they're more likely going to have a different language that they're comfortable with, a different lifestyle, a different age group, and maybe even different buyer habits. But before we go a little deeper into international buyer personas, here's a really great example of a domestic buyer persona from a company called Zipcar. Their mission statement even includes who their main buyer persona should be: someone who's urban, educated, tech savvy, and environmentally conscious. And you can totally tell by their Instagram post that you see on the right who their buyer persona is. I mean, it's two young people in a very urban environment. You can tell by the background, and they're holding plants, so it makes them look environmentally conscious or environmentally friendly. And the good news for you is that it shouldn't be very hard to do to identify a buyer persona, because you already know the main attributes of who they are. The first place to look is who your current customers are. Then get your marketing and your sales team together, find commonalities, and make sure to look at your data as well. So take a look at your social media, your analytics on your website, and that will also give you an idea of who your buyer persona is. Now diving into that international buyer persona. Especially in the times that we're in today, international buyer personas can differ from your domestic persona. On this slide, there are a few questions that you should ask yourself, like, are there multiple buyer personas for my export markets? How do they find me? What do they care about? L'Oreal is a frequently cited company for how spot on they are with their international marketing. So if you look at the picture and the text, this is L'Oreal assuring their US stylists that they're committed to support them while we're socially distancing ourselves. And this especially affects, hairstylists, beauty boutiques, people who do nails, that sort of thing. This is reflective of L'Oreal knows that their buyer persona is most likely going to be the small business owner or someone who works for a small business. And right now, what matters in the US is support for SMEs. So that's who they're talking to, their buyer persona is for the US. In L'Oreal Australia, however, the message is completely different. There is no mention of COVID-19, of coronavirus, nothing, but instead focus on the climate. This is most likely due to the horrible fires that Australia suffered just a few months ago in the beginning of the year. And that is what matters to them right now. And then in the last example, L'Oreal Brazil is demonstrating to Brazilian consumers that they're doing their part to help the people of Brazil by producing hand sanitizer, something that they don't usually produce. As you can see, each buyer persona is clearly different, and their messaging and their websites are very respectful of that.
Samantha, terrific. That's a great roundup for you to understand what a buyer persona is. And as Samantha said, you may well have different buyer personas in each market. Remember also, distributors can be a buyer persona. So let's talk some more about some of these marketing essentials. What are the essential tools? Obviously, one of the first ones is what's called organic search. This basically comes into SEO, search engine optimization. Now, obviously, search SEO, then organic search means it's free. You're not paying for this. And it is really, you know, it basically, when you go into Google, type in whatever it is you want, you know, and that is the response. The first responses you get is the organic responses there, and they have earned their way up to that. Now, this is very much seen as really also the goal of a lot of marketeers. It really establishes the authority and the relevance. So again, you have this word relevance. And here again, if you're looking at international markets, you know, how are you going to be relevant to that international market? How are you going to be relevant to the person sitting in, or your prospective buyer based in, you know, the UAE, or in Brazil, or in Mexico, or wherever it is, or Japan, wherever that prospective buyer is? You need to be relevant for them in order to have some kind of optimization to be recognized by the local search engine. People say it's free. I would question that. It's a lot of experience and expertise that goes into making a strong search engine optimization. And remember that it's something that is on a continuous basis. It needs to be done again and again. Well, not the opposite, but another option to that is what's called paid search engine. And this is when you're paying for Google AdWords. And actually, it's a pretty good time to do this because the price of Google AdWords has really come down in the last 4 months of this year, given COVID. But I want to give you an example here. Standing desks. This is something that's very keen at the moment in terms of as we're all in lockdown, trying to work from our kitchen tables. But you see the first 4 are all about ads. That little ad word there, AD, stands that it's someone paid for it. So if you pay for it, you get to go above the people who have earned that right for organic, which is sit-stand.com and IKEA, who both have earned their places as a top relevance for that particular search. It's a very, very good strategy to combine the organic with paid. Use paid for those short-term bursts when you need to either have a new product launch, or you've got something important that's going on, or you want to, you know, to have a short-term boost of your sales and awareness within a market. Careful on those Google AdWords and getting the exact words correct. And again, this is an example of keywords. We had a similar example in the previous webinar. It's just to show you the difference between, you know, using the right words in the right market. So in this case, the word for train in Portuguese can either be trem if you're in Brazil, or comboio if you're in Portugal. And it has a very, very different effect on the results of your AdWord and ad campaigns in Google, and on your search results. If you're using the word comboio in Brazil, 5% of the people in Brazil will search on that word. So you're missing out on 95% of people even searching for that for your business. So, you know, make sure your keywords are correct for your Google ad campaigns when you're going internationally. So many of the strategies involve a combination of organic and paid. Over the long term, you want the organic to always be there and to establish your authority in your product and in your SKU, in your expertise. paid is fantastic when you want to get started and when you want to have a new product launch, or when you want to even help a distributor in market. So again, use those two in a very dynamic and a very plastic way. The last thing I wanted to mention just about these marketing essentials is that any marketing strategy, internationally and domestically, has to be measured continuously. You need to choose the right key performance indicator that you want, which mirrors your goal and mirrors the strategy that you've got, and then continuously analyze and review and learn from it and improve it. So let's talk now about using international online marketing for companies. Samantha, perhaps you could take us through this and also help point out that there are some infographics.
Yes, of course. So for international online marketing, it's important to understand the specific countries you are marketing to, because each country interacts with social media a bit differently. Luckily, there's a ton of resources online on websites like Hootsuite, We Are Social, HubSpot, and on our website too, ibt.onl. So the following 5 slides are Missouri's top export markets, and unfortunately we don't have time to really dive into each individual country, but know that on our website we have a ton of free resources like the infographics you'll see on the left, case studies, blogs, and webinars that dive into individual countries and specific online topics. And as Susanna mentioned, we actually attached 5 infographics to this webinar as handouts, so you can download them and check them out at your leisure. So real quickly, here's Canada, and you can just kind of take a look at the numbers and see how much they change from country to country. Next is Mexico, then China, Japan, and Germany. And like I said, please download the infographics and you can really take a look at the numbers. It's super interesting. So not only do you have to understand the individual country, but also the platform. Facebook is an obvious first choice for many marketers, both domestically and internationally, because it's available in 101 languages and people spend an average of 35 minutes a day on the platform. It has a huge audience of over 2 billion people, making potential customers all over the world a bit easier to reach. Next is YouTube. So YouTube is another huge social media platform that marketers absolutely need to use, regardless of whether you're B2B or B2C, because something a lot of people don't realize is how easy it is to use videos for your business, both domestically and internationally. I mean, look at those stats. Second most visited website globally, second largest search engine behind Google. 80% of the views are outside of the US, so your international customers. It's available in 91 countries and 76 languages, and yet only 9% of the US small businesses use it. So definitely a gap that people need to fill. And nowadays with iPhones, you don't need a huge production budget to make an impactful video. You have a video that you're happy with, translate it or put some subtitles on the bottom or do a voiceover, and boom, you can reach an even larger audience outside of the US. So definitely a platform worth taking a look at. Next is LinkedIn. So as many of you know, LinkedIn is important for professionals to connect throughout the US, but don't discount it for international marketing. The largest user base behind the US is India, China, Brazil, the UK, and France. And it's 3 times more effective than Facebook and Twitter for lead generation. And COVID-19 has actually made LinkedIn even more relevant. An article came out on the Financial Times recently saying that more people are posting more stuff on LinkedIn. The article shared that people are posting to stay relevant so that when normal business resumes, you're, quote, on people's minds. And the numbers the numbers absolutely back it up. LinkedIn shared that the number of conversations between its members jumped 55% in March from the same time last year. And live broadcasts have also gone into overdrive. Demand has more than tripled since February, and users are much more chatty. So the average number of comments on the broadcast has surged 272%. So If you haven't been on LinkedIn yet, now is a phenomenal time to start because people are engaging with it a lot more than they used to. And even before, it was a platform to be on. And just one more note, remember that even if you are a B2B business, you are still speaking to people on the other side. So make sure to use LinkedIn to get to know and to talk directly to your customers. It's a great platform. The next is Instagram. So you might be wondering if Instagram is the right social media platform for your business. And the answer is probably yes. Instagram is a great choice for businesses because in today's world, businesses need to reach and interact with potential clients, and this platform is ideal to do so. Over 80% of all Instagram users are following at least one business account. And Instagram has the highest engagement rate of all social media platforms with 95 million posts and 4.2 billion likes per day. Instagram users are active, spending about 53 minutes a day on the app. And I mean, I'm guilty in saying that I have a 20-minute limit on my Instagram per day, and it's very rare that I don't hit that cap. But Instagram is not only a platform to create brand awareness or engagement, because with the right posts and the right ads, it can also increase purchases. 48% of all Instagram users said that they made a purchase because of a brand's video that they watched on the platform. So impactful in purchases as well. But keep in mind on Instagram that there's 3 different ways to post, and each way has a different purpose. So an example of that later that Susanna will get into, but know that Instagram stories, Instagram TV, and the normal posts will and absolutely should be different. Now I'm going to hand back to Susanna, who will take a deeper dive into marketing in China because it's a very unique environment.
Thank you very much, Samantha. We can do an entire webinar just on online marketing in China, but we're going to limit it today to just one slide. But let us know if you want more information. We're happy to share that. I just want to highlight that it is, as Samantha said, its own environment. So anything that you're doing in other markets, you can't do in China. It has, you have to have different platforms and even different strategies the way they work. So YouTube is banned. For search engines, you're going to use Baidu, not Google. You would use Youku rather than YouTube, and so on. There's no Facebook. You would have to use. You would try to get a WeChat account. So it's a very different strategy, and but a very, very dynamic one. Companies and consumers in China looking at companies to buy things from, looking at prospective buyers, would expect you to be engaged on their social media, not just to have a Chinese website. So if you are thinking of having a localized website in China, save a little bit of your budget for the online marketing, because that would be very, very much what people are expecting from you. They would expect to be able to find you on Weibo, for example, on Youku, and so on. So, but that's an entire different webinar that we can dive into. We wanted to share with you, though, some of those results and analysis of different online marketing strategies, and that can be in different markets. So here you have sort of a screenshot of a strategy we're doing for a particular client of ours, where we're targeting the UK market and the Mexican market. It's for the same product. The strategies are tweaked a bit, and obviously one's in Spanish and one's in English and so on, but they're also tweaked in other ways as well to try and reach the maximum of people. But they are the same. They were done on the same date. They're done with the same product, the same budget, and they strongly resemble each other. Very different results, as you can see from here. And we reached 9,500 people in the UK. We reached 371,500 people in Mexico. Pretty amazing, I thought. And we were really pleased with the UK one. To reach 9,500 on one post, we thought was fantastic. We were really pleased with ourselves. We got over 1,000 post clicks. We got 18 likes. That's amazing for Frosty Brits. You know, we were really pleased with that. In Mexico, blow us out of the water. You know, we had people doing ha, wows, love it, sharing, all kinds of things. Nearly 20,000 post clicks. Just an entire different reaction. So again, this very, very socially aware, social media aware, very interactive market of Mexico versus the more standoffish, more mature, less perhaps social media involved UK market. But let's look at a little bit deeper as well. Here you have the same strategy over the same company, same product over a year. Starting, and the top is Mexico, and then there's the UK. The blue and red columns in each case represent the reach and how many people liked it, and how many people opened the click and clicked on it and did things like that. So that's called engagement. And the yellow and the green, however, is really important. That's called conversion. And those graphs show you how many people are buying it or are looking to buy it or asking about price and request a quote and things like that. So, you know, you need both. You need a certain level of engagement to get the conversions. And what this graph shows is that you need to have that level of engagement in Mexico to get that level of conversion. And in the UK, you don't. You can get the same level of conversion, the same level of people requesting a quote, you know, send us a price, to the Mexican ones with just a lot less engagement. So again, similar strategies, very different results depending on the markets. So worth thinking very strongly about your strategies in different markets and how very differently they can react. We wanted to show you this as an example as well. This is just an example of saying, where is the buyer persona and how do we identify the buyer persona and what do we create that's relevant for that buyer persona? And in this case, we're working for a company whose main buyer persona are primary school teachers. And we know that Easter is a big event in Germany. It's a much bigger event than it is in the US or in Anglo-Saxon countries. It's a really, really big event, and schools get very involved. Schools can get very involved. So we created some content for that client in German to identify and target those German primary school teachers. The objective was, yes, to build brand awareness and to make sure they're on spot on for the buyer persona. And that's just to show you an example of the kind of strategy that you can have in terms of directly focusing in on your buyer persona. Very briefly then, summarizing some of those best practices that we've gone through. Step one, get a localized website. You need a springboard to act in your major international markets. It doesn't have to be in all markets, but you need it in your major international markets. And that's where you should be focusing on. Step two, know your buyer persona. That way you'll know their journey and their buyer's journey that you need to engage with. Choose your platforms that are worth your resources. Is it going to be Facebook or YouTube? Is it going to be Instagram or LinkedIn? Make sure that your resources work hard. And remember, less is more. Focus on the platforms that work. Don't spread yourself too thin. Always set goals and learn and analyze those goals. And finally, answer all comments and mentions. Engage with those that engage with you. We wanted to focus also on preparing for the rebound. I was going to share this. I don't know. We don't know. We don't have crystal balls. We have no idea when and how that rebound will happen. We know that it will happen. And our advice for companies is really to make sure that they watch the metric that applies to them. I'm sharing this as a graph. It comes from IATA Economics, the Airline Industry Economics Statistical Analysis Forum. And here you can see a chart of passenger numbers in China and Asia in particular, and China in particular, COVID versus SARS and things, and the slope of the recovery that's going on at the moment. I don't know, we don't know, if that's going to be double dip, a seesaw, whatever, and how long that line will be. But for this particular client, he has found the metrics that he wants to watch closely. And at the moment, for him, what he's interested in seeing is that China is recovering, whereas the US, the UK, Europe is not in this particular rebound. So that he says, it will eventually, but I want to be there because that's what's happening there. That's where I can get a sale. Just going on, also keeping on the China track, since they were the first to go into this COVID, we're also watching closely consumer behavior. And we were really interested to see Hermes, the French luxury goods company, reopening their flagship store in Guangzhou, one of the richest provinces of China. Day one of their opening, they clocked $2.7 million in sales in just one day. Unheard of anywhere for a store, for a luxury goods store. They were selling, Birkin bags at thousands and thousands of dollars each. And on the left-hand side of your screen, you have a series of clips that the company put out showing what Chinese consumers were sharing on their various WeChat accounts, and showing, look, I'm in Hermes now, I'm buying stuff. So again, we don't know where it's going to go, how it's going to continue, but be prepared for the rebound. Be prepared geographically and see what platform it's going to go on, because it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to go to trade shows. You're not going to be able to visit your clients, even when there is a bit of a rebound within the next few months is the likelihood. Maybe there'll be some easing bit by bit. We're seeing it happening, but it's going to be gradual. So make sure that your online tools are working hard for you. Make sure that your website has got something saying, we are open for business, but here's the new way to get a hold of us. Here's the new way that we're doing business. What are your calls to actions, your CTAs on your website? Make sure they're very, very clear. There are different objectives and different goals when you look at online marketing. Here's some selections of them that, if you say, okay, if you want to drive leads, then you're looking really at those conversion parts, those yellow and green parts of the bar chart that I was showing you earlier. Those are conversions, because that's when you want to drive sales. But you also want to look at improving customer retention. Again, those are metrics that reflect how customers think and feel about you. And so again, you're going to be looking at social media sentiment and how people react. So make sure that your objective fits now with your social media and your metric going forward in this time when we're beginning to start coming out of lockdown. We're beginning to get prepared and lined up for that rebound and recovery, and making sure that we are there. For us, it's really important to remain, to stay in communicating. That is what builds relationships with your prospects, with your existing clients as well. Make sure that you are communicating. It is really hard to get back in front of space, in front of mind, once you disappear. So don't drop off the radar is the big, I guess, the big message we have. Obviously not for your domestic, but don't drop off the export international radar either. Use your online tools, use your websites, use your social media and online and things. And Missouri companies are extremely fortunate. They have Ann and her team at MITI working really hard to make sure that you've got resources to help you. With the funding of it is, I think, certainly amongst the most generous I've seen in the USA. Take advantage of it. I wanted to show you just this one example of a company in your region, and it's interesting. I mean, they make abrasive tools, they make grinding wheels and things like that, and it was really interesting to hear their CEO Jonathan there talking, and he said, different companies are opening up at different times and in different countries. And, we ASI, our company, we're robust and we have a good international team and we're still manufacturing. So it's a really good time to sort of shake those trees. To a lot of your competitors, a lot of these competitors are not. So take advantage of that. Go out there in the world and make sure that you're, front of mind. It's the right time, if you can, to take market share, if you can. And then he said, a lot of our companies are 75% of our sales is about being face to face. We can't do that right now. We cannot do that right now. We can't be allowed to travel. We're not visiting companies. It's totally changing the way we have to do business. And that's why we're going to get these localized websites. We're going to do some marketing. We're looking at also other platforms, GoToWebinar, for example, where your clients can take their tablets out and work that way. We have to get innovative. You have to be innovative and online to get ready for that rebound. So Samantha, maybe you could talk us through a little bit the options that the Missouri companies have.
Yeah, I would be happy to. So these first two are going to look a little familiar to the people who joined us for our website localization webinar. The first option is option A, which is a 2-market expansion with a limited scope. So 12 web pages and words for each website. By the end of option A, you'll have 2 websites completely localized for your top 2 target markets. So for this example, one in German for Germany and one in French for France. These websites will be based off of your US site, but we will go through a whole localization process, including proper domain names, local hosting, SEO keyword research, industry-specific translators, regulatory compliance like GDPR, and so much more. So by having these websites, they'll help you be found, be understood, and be easier to do business with in your top markets. In terms of budget, option A costs $12,000, but with the help of the MITI, it can be 100% paid for by the GMAP grant and the Missouri Step Up grant for approved companies. So please take advantage of it. And if you want more information about any of these options, by the way, we have a Missouri dedicated web page. So if you just type in ibt.onl/Missouri, you can learn a ton of more information about the statement of work and everything. It goes into much bigger detail. Then the second option for website localization is option B. And option B is anything above and beyond the scope of work of option A. So maybe your company is looking for a website redesign, or maybe you want to add international e-commerce, or maybe you only want one country, but you want a huge scope of work like 50 pages and 30,000 words. Then option B would probably best suit you and your business. The budget for option B is completely dependent on the scope of work, but the MITI does provide the 2 grants that they do for option A for option B as well. So it's important to keep that in mind.
Samantha,
then
I just want to launch a quick poll, if I may, Samantha. Sorry to interrupt you. If I can. Sorry.
No, please do.
All right, just launch a quick poll. If anyone would like us to get involved, or if you're interested in option A or option B, you can let us know, or let Ann and her team know. That'd be great. And just fill out the yes, you'd like it right away. Yes, you're thinking about it, or yes, give it to me, and sort of get in touch in about a month's time. And thank you very, very much for those answers. Very encouraging to see that. Thank you very much for that. Very pleased. Thank you. Right, Samantha, sorry about that. I will now move on to option C.
No worries. So option C is the option that covers international online marketing. So if you need help in this area, if our free resources aren't enough, or you don't have the internal capabilities to do international online marketing, because like we covered in this webinar, it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. We have a dedicated technical team that would be able to help you grow internationally through search engine marketing, social media marketing, and reporting and analytics. And the budget is very straightforward. It's $1,500 per market per month. And we have a recommended ad spend for search engine marketing and social media marketing of $900. And that is what we recommend, but it completely depends on the company, whether you want to spend more or less on paid ads. But please know that Missouri companies are eligible for an annual grant of from GMAP of up to $6,000, subject to the MITI approvals. So there are grants available for the website localization, also for the international online marketing piece, which is super helpful.
Samantha, thanks very much. I'm launching a quick poll on that one as well, if I can. Just a large quick poll, just to say, would you like to be contacted regarding the Missouri Online Global Option C, option online marketing? If you would like to be contacted, please let us know. If you're in a rush, or if you say, okay, you can wait a few weeks, or if you'd like to still think about it, just let us know. And again, I really appreciate your responses, which are still coming through. Thank you very much indeed. And we will be responding in due course. Thank you. And I'm going to close that poll and turn back to Samantha.
Thanks, Susanna. So just one last note, that please look after yourself, look after your loved ones, look after your communities. Our staff here at IBC Online and the staff at the MITI, we are here to help, and we are happy to help. So if you have any questions, just please don't hesitate to reach out, and we're looking forward to answering any and all of your questions.
Samantha, thank you very much. We have a bit of time left for questions, and there's quite a few. There's one for Ann, starting with you, Ann, if I may. This one for you, just asking, Ann, is this the step, Mo Step Up and GMAP, is that eligible in the long term, or is this a short one-off thing? Is this a time-limited offer?
Susanna, thank you for the question. And this is a bit of a limited time offer. Of course, it will be dependent on the recovery efforts and the economic status of the state moving forward. But at least for the next 6 to 8 months, the GMAP regulations and policies will be relaxed in order to accommodate this program.
Thank you. That's fantastic. I have at least 2 other people asking me if we can show the slide with all the telephone numbers again. But perhaps, Ann, you could just say, is there a central place where you can find the contact numbers?
There is, as a matter of fact. You can certainly reach out to our website, ded.mo.gov, Exports and Trade tab under the business's main tab.
Okay. And last question as well for you, Ann. How long does it take to process the paperwork?
So that's a fantastic question, but I do want to let and assure all of the companies out there that we have a dedicated team. Melanie, and Kay of our team are responsible for literally walking the companies through the process, helping them with the application, which literally does not take very long to complete. All applications have to be approved before an approval is provided to take part in the activity. And then reimbursement typically takes place within 10 business days.
So very
once
quick.
The activity. Right. Once the activity has been completed.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And there's, I wanted to point out also on the slide, I'm just looking, there's your email address, and then the website ded.mo.gov.
Correct.
Thank you. Samantha, a quick question for you. What is the timing on these websites? I guess for option A, like how long does it take to do a website, I guess is the question.
Yeah, great question. So our option A, our standard website, so the 2 websites, 12 web pages, 2,000 words, takes about 3 months, and it can take a little less time, like about 2.5 months, if the company and our technical team are on task and on deadline. So it can take a little less time. For option B, depending on the scope, it can take a little longer because, you know, website redesign, a whole new e-commerce platform takes a bit more time, but usually we say about 4 months.
Okay. Samantha, just quickly as well, you talked about YouTube. Can we keep them in English? You said we could subtitle them. I guess a little bit more explanation on the YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So YouTube has a pretty handy functionality that it recognizes subtitles and pulls them up for relevant countries. So subtitles is a great way to go. It's a little bit, sometimes it can be more cost effective than doing a voiceover. Voiceovers are also really nice. So yeah, either one is great, and it's just a step in the right direction for your international customers.
Okay. There's a couple of questions I'm going to take if that's okay. One is just about content creation. You know, can we provide content? Yes, we regularly provide content and do content creation. For example, the example I showed you about the primary school teacher was content that we created and then had validated by the company. And obviously, it's always following brand guidelines, but we create the content, and that includes content in China. Just to answer that question as well. There's another question about which markets and how do you decide which markets to focus on and which platforms. Yes, we can help you decide on which platforms per market. You know, Twitter, for example, does not work very well in Germany. Germans just don't like it. They consider it a bit kitschy. So they're not serious enough for them. So they don't really respond well to Twitter, although it's growing slowly. But they don't. But Japan loves Twitter. They are big Twitter consumers. So we can definitely guide you which platform works best in which market. That is part of our expertise. There's quite a few questions about very specific markets from Puerto Rico to China, which I think we're going to have to answer by individual email if you'll allow us, because they're very specific to your company and to an individual country. I guess just one more, Samantha, for you, which is, can you help with domain names? Samantha, if you're okay with that?
Yes. Yeah, we absolutely can. We don't own them, so we can help you purchase them. Our technical team has a ton of expertise on the subject. So if you decide to do a program with us, they would absolutely help you with domain names.
Okay, that's terrific. We have actually gone slightly over time. It's just after. Thank you so much, Ann and the Missouri International Trade and Investment Office team, especially a big shout out to Natasha for helping us a lot in the marketing. Did a fantastic job. And Ann and all of her team, thank you so much. And Missouri exporters and Missouri companies, we are delighted with your responses and your reactivity, and wish you all the best in terms of getting prepared for the rebound, survive and thrive. That's our motto. Samantha, also thank you for joining me in today's webinar. So without further ado, we're going to call it a close as we're just beyond our time. Thank you again. Happy exporting. Be safe, be well, and as I said, survive and thrive, and do well internationally as well as domestically. Thank you very much, Missouri, and speak to you all soon, I hope. Bye-bye.
You. Bye-bye.
Thank you.